The restaurant was alive with elegance that evening. The soft clinking of crystal glasses, the low hum of jazz music echoing against marble walls, and the aroma of truffle oil and seared steak filled the air. It was a kind of place where wealthy couples celebrated anniversaries, where businessmen signed million-dollar deals, where every detail whispered luxury. But amidst the glimmer of chandeliers and velvet curtains, a quiet tension stirred. A man in a faded polo shirt, jeans, and a simple cap pushed open the heavy glass doors. He looked out of place in this world of tailored suits and designer dresses. Some guests gave him fleeting glances before returning to their wine. To most, he looked like a man who didn't belong here. At the host's stand, the hesitation was instant. The host's eyes flicked up and down, unsure whether to welcome him warmly or redirect him elsewhere. That's when Amelia appeared. She was a star waitress of the house, blonde hair pulled into a perfect bun, red lipstick gleaming, every step filled with confidence. Guests often admired her beauty and charm, but behind her smile was a sharp eye that judged quickly, and in her eyes, the man in casual clothes was not worth a time. Leaning toward the host, she whispered, "Table 7? For him? Please. He looks like he can't even afford the water here." Her words weren't meant to carry, but they did. The host shifted uncomfortably. Amelia, however, seized a moment and led the man to the worst seat in the house, a small corner table squeezed near the kitchen doors, a place no paying guest ever wanted. The man sat quietly, hands folded on the polished wood. He didn't protest. He simply observed. 10 minutes passed, then 15. Still, no one had offered him even a glass of water. At the next table, Julia, a petite waitress with tired eyes and a warm smile, noticed him waiting. Julia was different from Amelia. A single mother raising a 5-year-old boy, she worked long hours, often covering extra shifts. Her uniform was always a little wrinkled, her hair tied back in haste, but her kindness never dimmed. She wanted to approach the man, but Amelia cut across her path with a sharp glance. "Don't bother with him," Amelia muttered. "He's not worth your tips. I'll handle it later." Later never came. When Amelia finally approached the man, she wore a strained smile. "We're very busy tonight. I'll need your order quickly. Drinks?" "Just water, please. Sparkling, if you have it." His voice was calm, steady. Amelia smirked. "Sparkling is $12 a bottle. Sure you don't want regular tap?" The insult stung. A couple at the next table overheard and exchanged uncomfortable looks. But the man only nodded politely. Julia couldn't take it anymore. Quietly, she slipped into the kitchen, grabbed a chilled bottle of sparkling water, and placed it gently on his table. "I'm so sorry for the wait, sir. Please enjoy. Take your time with the menu." The man's eyes softened as he looked at her. There was exhaustion in her face, but also a light that couldn't be dimmed. The night wore on. Amelia lavished attention on wealthy businessmen, laughing at their jokes, while the man in casual clothes was left to fend for himself. His meal arrived late, the pasta barely warm. When he mentioned it gently, Amelia shrugged. "That's how it comes. If you wanted something better, maybe you should have ordered something higher end." Julia, once again, tried to make up for it. She brought him a complimentary slice of cheesecake from the house, but Amelia noticed. She stormed over, her voice sharp and cutting. "Julia, don't waste your time on freeloaders. We run a premium establishment, not a charity kitchen." The restaurant fell silent. Forks froze midair. All eyes turned toward the corner table. Julia's face flushed with embarrassment. She lowered her gaze, humiliated, and that's when the man moved. Slowly, he set down his fork and removed his cap. Salt and pepper hair glinted under the chandelier. His posture shifted, no longer casual, no longer meek. Guests began to whisper. Recognition spread. He wasn't just a customer. He was Michael Reynolds, the CEO and owner of the restaurant itself. Michael's voice cut through the silence, calm but commanding. "Interesting service tonight. Amelia, was it? Tell me, is this how you treat guests in my house?" Amelia's lips parted, but no words came out. Her confidence evaporated. Julia's eyes widened in shock. Michael stood tall, his gaze sweeping across the room. "I built this restaurant to be a sanctuary, a place where every person, regardless of wealth, feels welcome. Tonight, I saw the opposite, and it ends now. Amelia tried to stammer an excuse, but Michael raised a hand. Save it. Service is not about serving wallets. It's about serving people. And you failed. Effective immediately, you're done here. The crowd gasped. Amelia's face turned pale. She stormed out of the restaurant, humiliated. Michael turned to Julia. His voice softened. And you remembered what this place stands for. You put people first. Tomorrow, you'll meet with me in my office. We'll talk about your future here. Julia's lips trembled. She nodded, eyes shimmering with tears. As the restaurant slowly returned to its rhythm, Michael looked around at the hard-working staff, the dishwasher scrubbing tirelessly, the busbar nervously clearing tables, the waiters rushing to keep guests happy. These were the people who made the restaurant what it was. Leadership isn't about chandeliers or marble floors, the narrator reflected. It's about kindness, humility, and the unseen hands that keep the world turning. Tonight, the arrogant were humbled, and the quiet heroes were seen. But just as Michael was about to leave, the young busboy approached him cautiously. His voice was low, almost trembling. Sir, Amelia wasn't the only one. There are things happening in the kitchen, things you don't know about. Michael paused, his expression darkening, and in that moment, he realized the real story was only just beginning. The restaurant had just returned to its rhythm. Plates clinked, glasses chimed, and the faint sound of jazz trickled back into the air after the storm of Amelia's public downfall. Guests leaned close to whisper, still buzzing about the twist they had just witnessed. The poor customer in jeans and a polo shirt had turned out to be Michael Reynolds, the CEO and owner of the entire establishment. But as the night drew on, Michael's attention shifted from the dining floor to something else. The young busboy, Marcus, had approached him nervously. His voice shook, but his words cut deep. Sir, Amelia wasn't the only one. There are things happening in the kitchen, things you don't know about. Michael's expression hardened. He had expected arrogance, maybe greed. But betrayal inside his own kitchen? That was different. That was wrought in the foundation. Most CEOs would have stormed in, demanded answers, flexed authority. But Michael had learned something over the years. You discover more truth by listening quietly than by shouting loudly. He slipped through the swinging kitchen doors, blending into the chaos. The moment he entered, the polished facade of the restaurant cracked apart. The air was thick with the smell of garlic, sizzling meat, and something less appetizing, burnt oil that hadn't been changed in too long. Pots clattered, steam hissed, voices shouted over one another. Lewis, the immigrant dishwasher, scrubbed pans furiously, his hands raw and cracked. His apron was stained, water dripping onto his shoes. He looked exhausted, but he didn't stop moving. At the prep station, Marcus struggled to keep up with dirty dishes stacking higher than his small frame. He darted from sink to table, his cheeks red with strain. And then there was a head chef, Damien, a broad-shouldered man with slick-back hair, barking orders like a drill sergeant. He wasn't just tough, he was cruel. Lewis, that pan isn't clean. You call that work? You're useless. Marcus, faster. Plates don't walk themselves. The words sliced through the kitchen like knives. No encouragement, no acknowledgement, just humiliation. Michael lingered in the shadows, watching. Marcus slipped beside him while collecting more dishes. His voice was low, urgent. It's not just a yelling. Say, Chef Damien has been cutting corners, reusing food, selling spoiled stuff as fresh, and is pocketing money from suppliers. Michael's jaw tightened. Cutting corners was bad enough, but risking the health of customers? That was unforgivable. Marcus hesitated before continuing. We tried to speak up. Julia once complained after a guest got sick. But Damien told us if we said another word, we'd be gone. He said the manager backed him up. Michael's stomach turned. If Damien had protection high up, this wasn't just one bad chef. It was rot that had spread through his own leadership. Michael decided to push quietly. He approached the prep counter, pretending still to be a regular customer who had wandered in. Excuse me, he said casually. I ordered pasta earlier. It tasted strange. Do you mind telling me how it was made? Damien toned, irritation flashing across his face. He didn't recognize Michael without his cap. To him, this was just some nosy customer. "You don't get to ask how it's made," Damien snapped. "You either eat it or you don't. We don't explain ourselves to nobodies." The kitchen froze. Lewis's scrubbing slowed. Marcus stopped mid-step. Everyone knew those words had just sealed something. They just didn't know what. Michael stayed calm, his tone even. "Interesting, because I happen to care about how guests are treated here, and how food is prepared." Damien scoffed. "Yeah? Well, if you care that much, you wouldn't be eating here in jeans. Go back to your corner and let me run the kitchen." At that moment, Julia burst through the doors, arms full of plates. She froze when she saw Michael standing face-to-face with Damien. Her heart skipped. "So, maybe you should go back to the dining floor. The kitchen gets heated sometimes," she whispered carefully, trying to protect him. Michael gave her a reassuring nod. "Don't worry. I can handle heat." Julia glanced at Damien, then at Michael, and something in her eyes revealed she knew the truth, or at least suspected. Michael had seen enough. He slowly removed his cap again, letting the kitchen staff see him clearly this time. The reaction was instant. Lewis's jaw dropped. Marcus froze. Julia's eyes widened with relief. But Damien? His face paled. Michael's voice was steady, cutting through the chaos. "I'm Michael Reynolds. This is my restaurant, and what I've just witnessed is unacceptable." The kitchen went silent. Steam hissed, pans bubbled, but no one moved. Damien tried to recover, forcing a laugh. "Mr. Reynolds, I didn't realize it was you. Forgive the language. We run a tight ship here. You know how it is." Michael's eyes narrowed. "Tight ship? I saw spoiled food on that counter. I heard you threaten my staff. And I know about the money you've been pocketing from suppliers." Gas erupted from the workers. Damien's facade cracked. That's not true," he stammered. Marcus stepped forward, voice trembling but strong. "It is, sir. He makes us serve meat that's been sitting for days. He tells us to lie to customers. And if we say anything, he says he'll ruin us." Lewis finally spoke, his voice quiet but firm. "He's right. Damien treats us like trash. We stay silent because we need the job, but it's been happening for months." Damien's mask dropped completely. His voice turned cold, defensive. "So what if I cut a few corners? This place makes money because of me. Customers don't care. They just want a show on the plate. You think they come here for Julia's smile or Lewis's dishwashing? No, they come for my food." Michael stepped closer, his presence towering. "You're wrong. They come for trust. They come because this place is supposed to stand for excellence. And you poisoned it with your arrogance, your greed, and your cruelty." Damien's eyes darted around, looking for support, but found none. Every worker's gaze was fixed on Michael, hope flickering where fear once lived. "You're finished here, Damien," Michael said firmly. "Clean out your station. Security will escort you out." Damien sputtered, rage contorting his face, but he saw there was no way back. He slammed down his apron, cursed under his breath, and stormed out of the kitchen. The silence that followed was heavy, but it wasn't fear anymore. It was relief. Julia exhaled slowly, her shoulders finally loosening. Lewis wiped his brow, almost disbelieving. Marcus stood straighter, pride in his young face. Michael turned to them. "No one here will ever be punished for speaking the truth again. From now on, this kitchen will be run with respect. Fresh food, honest service, and dignity for every hand that works here." Tears welled in Julia's eyes. Lewis nodded silently, gratitude etched into his weary features. Marcus's lips curled into the smallest smile, as if a dream he thought impossible had suddenly become real. The next morning, Michael called a staff meeting. Every employee, waiters, dishwashers, cooks, hosts gathered in the dining hall. The chandeliers still glimmered above them, but the room felt different. The air was charged with anticipation. Michael stood before them, not as a distant CEO, but as a leader among equals. "I went undercover because I needed to see the truth. And what I saw was both ugly and beautiful. I saw arrogance and cruelty, but I also saw quiet strength, kindness, and integrity." His eyes fell on Julia. You reminded us what hospitality truly means. He turned to Lewis. You carried burdens no one should bear alone. And finally to Marcus. You spoke up even when you were afraid. That takes courage. The staff exchanged glances. For the first time in a long time, they felt seen. Michael continued. From today forward, things will change. Promotions will be given based on merit, not favoritism. Voices will be heard, not silenced. And no one, no matter their title, will be above accountability. Applause broke out. Some clapped hesitantly at first, but soon the sound filled the room, echoing against the high ceilings like a promise of a new era. As the staff dispersed, Julia lingered behind. She approached Michael quietly. Sir, I don't know how to thank you. Most owners wouldn't bother with people like us. But you came here. You saw us. Michael smiled faintly. Julia, you don't need to thank me. You kept this place alive when others tried to tear it down. The truth is, leaders don't build empires. People like you do. All I did was finally see it. Her eyes shimmered. For the first time in years, she felt hope. But just as a chapter seemed closed, a phone buzzed in Michael's pocket. He glanced at the screen, and his expression darkened. It was a message from a trusted friend on the board. Be careful. Damien isn't gone. He has allies, higher than you think, and they're coming for you. Michael's jaw clenched. He slipped the phone back into his pocket, his mind already racing. He had cleaned out the rot in the kitchen, but now he realized there were shadows in the boardroom. And this time, the battle wouldn't be fought with pots and pans. It would be fought with power, money, and betrayal at the highest level. The restaurant glowed that night with a new kind of energy. For the first time in months, the staff felt seen. Julia walked with her head held higher. Lewis washed dishes with a lighter heart. Marcus, the young busboy, moved with a quiet pride. The poison in the kitchen had been cut out, and hope had taken its place. But while the dining room flourished, a storm was brewing far above. Michael Reynolds sat alone in his office, the city skyline glittering through the tall windows. On his desk lay the phone with a message that had shaken him. Be careful. Damien isn't gone. He has allies, higher than you think, and they are coming for you. Michael leaned back in his chair, rubbing his temples. He had expected resistance. Bad employees rarely left without a fight. But this warning spoke of something deeper. Damien had friends in places Michael hadn't expected. The boardroom, investors, perhaps even his own management team. The next morning, Michael walked into the restaurant to find whispers among the staff. Julia approached him carefully, her voice low. Sir, there's a rumor going around. Some of the staff are saying Damien met with Mr. Hargrove. The name hit like a stone. Hargrove wasn't just any investor. He was the second largest shareholder in the restaurant group. Known for cutting costs and chasing profits, Hargrove had never liked Michael's people-first philosophy. Michael's eyes narrowed. Where did you hear this? Julia hesitated. Lewis said one of the delivery drivers overheard them talking behind the restaurant last night. Damien promised he could fix things if he got back in. Michael thanked her, but his thoughts were already racing. Damien had been disgraced, fired publicly. Yet if he had powerful backers like Hargrove, he wasn't finished. 2 days later, Michael's suspicions were confirmed. An emergency board meeting was called. The room was sleek and cold. Polished wood table, leather chairs, the skyline stretching behind floor-to-ceiling windows. The directors sat in silence as Hargrove cleared his throat. A tall man with silver hair and sharp eyes, he carried himself like a predator. Ladies and gentlemen, Hargrove began, our revenues have dipped slightly this quarter. Customer retention is stable, but margins are down, and we all know why. His gaze slid to Michael. Our esteemed CEO has been too busy playing social worker in his restaurants instead of focusing on profitability. Murmurs rippled across the table. Michael leaned forward, voice calm. If you're referring to the changes I made after discovering corruption in the kitchen, then yes, I focus on people. Because people are the backbone of this business. Hargrove smirked. People don't pay dividends, Michael. Numbers do. And under your leadership, those numbers are suffering. Another director raised a hand timidly. What exactly are you proposing, Mr. Hargrove? Hargrove's answer was smooth, rehearsed, simple. Bring back Chef Damien. He boosted margins. He kept costs down. And customers loved the flair he brought to the menu. The restaurant is not a charity. It's a business. We need leaders who understand that. Michael's fist clenched under the table. He spoke evenly. Damien was cutting corners, reusing spoiled food, endangering guests, and he abused the staff. That's not leadership, it's corruption. But Hargrove only smiled wider. Prove it. The board didn't vote that day, but the message was clear. Hargrove was building support. If he succeeded, Damien could return, not just as a chef, but as a pawn in a larger game to unseat Michael. Over the next week, subtle changes began creeping into the restaurant. A supplier suddenly refused delivery unless old invoices were cleared. Rumors spread among staff that Julia was only being promoted because she flirted with the boss. And customers began posting online about inconsistent service, complaints that seemed suspiciously coordinated. Michael saw the pattern. Damien and Hargrove were playing dirty, trying to destabilize the restaurant from the inside. But what hurt most was the effect on his people. Julia walked into his office one evening, eyes rimmed red. "Sir, I don't know if I can stay. People are saying things about me, that I'm only moving up because of you. It isn't true, but..." She trailed off, voice breaking. Michael's chest tightened. He had seen ambition destroy good people before, but Julia deserved better. "Julia," he said firmly, "they're trying to break you because you stood for what was right. Don't let them win. I'll fix this. I promise." If Hargrove wanted proof, Michael would give it to him. He called in Marcus late one night, after the last guest had left. "Son," he said gently, "you told me Damien reused food. Do you have anything to back that up?" Marcus hesitated, then nodded. "I kept notes. I was scared, so I wrote everything down. Dates, times, even the names of customers who complained." Michael's eyes lit up. "That's exactly what we need." Lewis joined them, quietly adding that he had photos taken secretly on his old phone of spoiled meat stored in the freezer, of Damien pocketing envelopes from suppliers. Piece by piece, the puzzle came together. Evidence of corruption, proof that Damien had not only endangered customers but stolen money directly from a business. Michael knew it was risky, but he was ready. The next board meeting arrived, tension heavy in the air. Hargrove sat at the head of the table this time, confident, a smug smile tugging at his lips. Damien was seated beside him, freshly groomed, arrogance dripping from every pore. "Ladies and gentlemen," Hargrove began smoothly, "I move that we reinstate Chef Damien effective immediately and reconsider the position of CEO if Mr. Reynolds cannot deliver stronger margins. This business needs results, not sentiment." Several directors nodded. The vote was about to swing. But Michael stood slowly, a folder in his hand. His voice was calm, but there was steel beneath it. "Before you vote, you should see this." He laid the documents on the table. Marcus's notes, Lewis's photos, supplier records that revealed thousands in missing funds. Gasps filled the room. One director flipped through the pages, eyes widening. This is theft, and food safety violations. If the press got hold of this..." Michael cut in. "If the press gets hold of this, we don't just lose margins. We lose our reputation. Forever." Damien risked lives for profit, and Hargrove knew it. The room erupted in murmurs. Hargrove's smile cracked. "Lies!" Damien shouted, "This is all fake." But Michael raised a final photo. Damien, hand outstretched, accepting a cash envelope from a supplier. Date stamped, time stamped. Silence fell. "I built this restaurant on trust," Michael said quietly. "If we trade that for greed, we deserve to fail. But if we stand for integrity, we'll thrive not just for one quarter, but for decades." The directors exchanged glances. One by one, they nodded. The vote was cast. Damien was permanently banned from the company. Hargrove, exposed, was forced to step down as a board member. Back at the restaurant, Michael gathered the staff once more. His voice carried not just authority, but gratitude. "The board tried to silence us, but the truth spoke louder. And it was your courage that made it possible, Marcus, for keeping records. Louis, for risking your job to document the truth. Julia, for standing tall when they tried to break you. This place doesn't belong to me. It belongs to all of us. Applause thundered. For the first time, the restaurant didn't feel like a workplace. It felt like a family. Later that night, Michael stood by the window, gazing out at the city lights. His empire had nearly been stolen, not by enemies on the outside, but by shadows within. Yet he had learned something vital. Power meant nothing if it wasn't used to protect the vulnerable. Leadership isn't about profits or prestige, the narrator reflected. It's about people. It's about standing firm when the world tells you to bend. And sometimes, it's about fighting battles you never asked for, because the people depending on you can't fight them alone. Michael thought the war was over. But as the night deepened, another message buzzed on his phone. This one was anonymous. Just 4 words. The board isn't finished. Michael's eyes narrowed. The game was bigger than he realized. Damien had been a pawn, Hargrove a piece. But somewhere in the shadows, a much larger hand was moving the board. And Michael knew the battle for his restaurant had only just begun. The storm had passed. Damien was gone. Hargrove had been forced to step down. The board had bowed to truth, and for the first time in months, the restaurant felt alive again. But victory in the boardroom meant little if it didn't reach the people sweating in the kitchen, the ones carrying plates across the dining floor, the ones cleaning dishes long after the last guest had left. Michael Reynolds knew this. He had saved the restaurant from corruption. Now, he wanted to see if his reform could save the people who had stood by him when it mattered most. Julia arrived early the next morning. 4 years, she had walked into the restaurant with dread, long shifts, low pay, constant judgment. But today felt different. She wasn't just another waitress. Michael had promoted her to floor supervisor, a role she never dreamed she would hold. As she tied her apron, she overheard whispers from other servers. "Did you hear? Julia's running the floor today. She deserves it. About time someone decent got notice." The words warmed her, but Julia's hand still trembled slightly as she pinned her name tag. Being a supervisor wasn't just about status. It meant leading others, making decisions, being the bridge between staff and management. Her phone buzzed. A text from her mother. "Don't forget you need to pick up Liam from school by 6. Her heart squeezed. Balancing this new responsibility with single motherhood wouldn't be easy. But for the first time, she felt like the struggle might be worth it. That night, Julia walked the floor with authority. She checked on tables, guided new servers, and even handled a difficult guest with calm professionalism. When Michael passed by, he gave her a nod, silent but full of pride. 4 years, Julia had fought just to survive. Now, she was beginning to build a life. In the kitchen, Louis scrubbed pans as always. His hands were cracked, his back sore, but something had shifted. Michael had doubled his pay and given him a new title, sanitation lead. More importantly, Michael had hired 2 more dishwashers to share the load. For the first time in years, Louis wasn't drowning under mountains of plates alone. But Louis carried more than physical exhaustion. He carried the weight of his past. Back in his home country, he had been a teacher. War had taken everything. His school, his home, even his family. When he came to this country, he couldn't get certified again. The only work he found was here, in the kitchen, his hands in grease instead of chalk. Sometimes, he wondered if life would ever be more than survival. That evening, Marcus noticed him rubbing his sore hands. "Mr. Louis, you okay?" the boy asked gently. Louis forced a smile. "Sigh, he Joe, just tired, but better tired than hopeless." Michael overheard. Later that night, he pulled Louis aside. "I read in your file that you were once a teacher. Why didn't you ever tell me?" Louis lowered his gaze. "Because who cares? Hey, I'm only the man who washes dishes." Michael shook his head. "Not anymore. From today, you'll help train new staff. You have patience, discipline, qualities we need. You may wash dishes, Louis, but you are also a teacher here." For the first time in years, Louis's eyes filled with tears. Marcus, the busboy, was still just a kid, barely 20, working double shift to save enough for culinary school. His dream was simple, to become a chef. But with bills piling up at home, he had all but given up. Michael noticed his dedication, the way Marcus studied every plate that left the kitchen, the way his eyes lit up when he passed a line of cooks. One night, after the last guest had left, Michael found Marcus cleaning a table. "Marcus," he said softly, "if you could cook anything, what would it be?" The boy froze. His eyes darted nervously. I don't know, sir." "Don't tell me you don't know," Michael pressed. "I've seen the way you look at the kitchen. Tell me." Marcus hesitated, then whispered, "My grandmother used to make arroz con pollo. Simple, but perfect. I'd give anything to learn to cook like her." Michael smiled. "Then let's start with that. Tomorrow, you'll spend 2 hours shadowing the new head chef. On the clock. My treat." Marcus's mouth fell open. His hands shook. "You mean it?" "I mean it," Michael said. The boy nodded, fighting back tears. For the first time, his dream didn't feel like a fantasy. It felt possible, but not everyone was happy. Change always breeds resentment. Some of the older staff muttered that Julia had been promoted too quickly. Others whispered that Louis was just a dishwasher who didn't deserve recognition. A few servers rolled their eyes when Marcus joined the chef on the line, calling him the charity case. Michael noticed the tension. Reform wasn't just about raising good people. It was about rooting out jealousy, entitlement, and pride. And in the shadows of the dining floor, a new bitterness was growing. One evening, as Julia was leaving, she found a note taped to her locker. "You don't belong here. Quit before you embarrass yourself." Her stomach dropped. For a moment, the old fear returned, the fear that she wasn't enough, that no matter how hard she worked, she'd always be judged. But then she remembered Michael's words. "They are trying to break you because you stood for what was right. Don't let them win." She crumpled the note and tossed it into the trash. 2 weeks later, the restaurant faced its biggest test. A high-profile critic had booked a table. Everyone was on edge. Julia coordinated the floor flawlessly, keeping servers calm under pressure. Louis doubled his cruise pace, ensuring every dish came out spotless. And Marcus, nervous but determined, assisted the chef in preparing side dishes, his grandmother's recipe secretly guiding his hands. When the critics' review appeared, it stunned them all. The service was seamless, led by a supervisor who seemed born for the role. The kitchen ran with precision and dignity, and the food, simple, honest, yet remarkable, proved that excellence is not in pretension, but in heart. The review went viral. Reservations doubled overnight. And for the first time, the restaurant was known not just for its chandeliers and marble floors, but for the people who made it alive. That night, after the last guest had gone, the staff gathered together. Julia stood taller. Louis smiled wider. Marcus's eyes shone brighter. Michael looked at them and saw not employees, but a family forged in fire. "We built something tonight," he said quietly. "Not just a restaurant. A story. A story of people who refused to break." The staff clapped, cheered, embraced one another. And in that moment, Julia realized she was no longer just a single mother fighting to survive. Louis realized he was more than a dishwasher. He was a teacher again. And Marcus realized his dream wasn't just possible, it was already beginning. But as the night settled and the staff drifted home, Michael remained behind. His phone buzzed again. Another anonymous message. "They are watching your people. The fight isn't over." Michael's gaze darkened. He had won the floor, the kitchen, and the staff. But the shadows above, the enemies who moved in silence, were still plotting. And now, they weren't just coming for him. They were coming for the people he had sworn to protect. The restaurant had never felt stronger. Julia led the floor with grace. Louis trained new staff with quiet authority. Marcus stepped onto the line with hope burning in his chest. But shadows don't disappear. They wait. They watch. They strike where it hurts most. It began with Julia. One evening, she welcomed a party of important guests, a corporate booking that could bring in thousands in future business. She checked their order twice, coordinated with the kitchen, and delivered the wine herself. But when the entrees arrived, the dishes were wrong. Not just wrong, embarrassingly wrong. Steaks overcooked, sides missing, sauces spoiled. The guests stormed out, furious. Julia was stunned. She had confirmed everything with the kitchen, But when she checked the ticket later, her handwriting had been altered. Someone had tampered with her order. Days later, Lewis opened the walk-in freezer to find chaos. Boxes overturned, raw meat mixed with produce, spoiled food hidden under fresh. It looked deliberate, like sabotage. When the health inspector arrived unexpectedly the next morning, Lewis was the one blamed. His record, once spotless, was now marked with violation. He tried to explain, but the inspector's words cut deep. You're supposed to be sanitation lead. If you can't handle that, maybe you're in the wrong job. Lewis walked away silent, his shoulders heavy. Marcus had been invited to assist with a new dish for the menu. Nervous but excited, he prepared his grandmother's arroz con pollo with pride. But when the critic arrived to taste it, the dish was ruined. Too salty, nearly inedible. Marcus was humiliated. Only later did he discover the truth. Someone had switched his salt container with one filled with baking soda mixed with salt. A cool trick designed to destroy him. One by one, his people were being targeted. Julia's credibility questioned. Lewis's reputation tainted. Marcus's dream humiliated. It wasn't random. This was precise. Calculated. Someone was sabotaging the staff to weaken Michael's foundation from within. That night, as Michael locked up the restaurant, he found a letter slid under his office door. The handwriting was sharp. The words were chilling. You can't protect them. You may have beaten Damien, but we are still here, and we will break you by breaking them. Michael held the letter in his hand, his jaw tight. The war had returned. Not in the boardroom this time, but on the floor, in the kitchen, in the very hearts of the people he cared about. The narrator's voice echoed. Who is behind the sabotage? A bitter former staffer? A rival in the shadows? Or someone closer than Michael realizes? And then the story paused, the screen fading to black with a question for the audience. What do you think? Who is really trying to destroy Michael's people from the inside?